Hi everyone, this is ETV331. I hope you can hear me alright. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how exactly I draw and how I got to this point. In order to become better at drawing, I know you've probably heard it before, but it requires so much practice. And honestly, even if it doesn't look good, just trying over and over with different pictures. Sketching is the way I slowly got better and better at drawing. In just a moment you'll see a slideshow of some artwork from the past leading up to the present, just to show how my drawing slowly progressed over the course of about the last 10 years. Well, here it is. Alright, so you saw that. It definitely got better over the years. It just requires drawing tons and tons of pictures. Now for actually using my specific stuff, the paper I use is Strathmore drawing paper. It's good for most medias, as in types of things you draw with. The only thing I wouldn't use it with is paint, because paint's very wet. But it's fairly inexpensive too. I got a pad of 50 for $10, so it's not terrible price. Pencils. The pencil I use is an Artist Loft sketching pencil. But it's fine to use any pencil you can sharpen. Mechanical pencils aren't as good because then they put indents in the paper and you can see where all your pencil lines are. So when you're trying to draw something specific, like a specific thing such as, say, Pikachu, you're going to want to try first doing exact sketches of pictures you see, and simple ones at that, and just kind of drawing it in a few different poses to get a feel for the length of all of its different aspects of its body, and getting used to the color schemes and such. So I'm just going to do a nice, easy sketch of a Pokeball, just because that's nice and simple and we can get it done quickly. Don't ever be afraid to draw more than one line, especially when you're drawing circles like this. Draw a lot of lines so you kind of get your basic circle. And just whenever you're drawing a new line, so you mess up, draw it first and then erase your mistake. That'll be a lot easier. Don't ever expect perfection the first time. You're going to make mistakes. That's how you get better at drawing, is making those mistakes and correcting them. So once you have your basic sketch, for mine, it looks a lot on the screen like I erased the entire thing. I'm actually just erasing so that there's very faint lines to show where to outline. Now, in my drawings, especially with marker, it's important to outline, because outlining will make sure your object sticks out when you add a background. Element to that is emphasis. Whenever you're choosing new colors, always test them on a sheet of paper with similar media. So for my outlining, I just use ultra fine point Sharpies. because they're fairly inexpensive. For my black outline, I use a more expensive pen. It's called Micron. And it has the different sizes. This one's an 05 millimeter. And whenever you're using your outlining for marker, you're gonna want it to be a different base than the thing you're coloring with. So I color with water base, and this is not water base. So then you also, when you're outlining, you want to draw fairly quickly but precisely. See, if I take a while and I pause places and do such, then it's going to come out a lot chunkier. So then I'll just very carefully outline. And remember, don't expect perfection. It's going to take some time. That one draws better, okay. And this is just gonna be a rough sketch to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing. Now, on your paper that you're testing on, draw each of your outlines. And then with whichever marker you're going to use, color just beside it. Now the markers I use to color in, most commonly I use the Artist Points dual tip from Michaels. And I have a set of 60 decent markers from Local King Rubber Stamp, just to give myself more variety. Sharpies, like normal fine Sharpies, can also work. But the thing I like about these is the brush tip, which I'll demonstrate in just a moment. The brush tip on this side here looks like a paintbrush. Now what's nice about this is that when you're coloring, you have a lot more control of your stroke. So see how the red outline still looks decently dark, but yeah, when I color it's still nice. See, I can get very thin with the brush tip, and I can also get thicker lines with the brush tip. You don't necessarily need different colors for shading when you're using marker, unless it's white. Obviously you'll need some gray. So now that my outlining is complete, I will erase the rest of the guide pencil completely. And now I'll begin to color. When you're coloring with your markers, it's not so important with darker ones, but with lighter ones, if you don't color fairly quickly, when you start to color again, you'll leave lines from overlapping and such. So you definitely want to color one region at a time that you made with your Sharpie outlining, and do it fairly quickly to avoid that look of overlap. You want the color to be nice and clear and concise. The nice part about using things like markers is that then the drawing takes much less time. Colored pencils give very detailed pictures. If you're drawing non-cartoon, colored pencil can be great. The colored pencils I use are Prismacolor. They're expensive, but they layer very nicely. And a tip with using colored pencils in general is that when you're finished, you can go over your color with white and it'll smooth it all out very well. Now I begin coloring the red on the Pokeball. Give your other colors some time to dry or else this will start happening. On your hand you'll get some black and that can spread to other parts of the picture and that's not pretty. Now I'm gonna leave a little bit of room for like a sheen. Just to make this a little bit fancier. Try and be careful not to overlap colors, otherwise they can bleed into one another. See, I just left some black on the paper. I'm getting a slight bit of dark lines, not coloring that very quickly. So you want to be slow enough to where you're not going over the outlining you made, but quick enough to where you're not going to have dark lines appearing waiting too long. If you have to take a break from it, always finish your region, then break. Let's see how that bled. If you're trying to clean the bleeding out of your marker, just take strokes on your practice sheet. Rotate the marker, make sure you get all points. It may still look dark on the tip, but it probably is all gone. And now we'll add just a little bit of pink to emphasize that there's multiple tones going on. When you're done with your first layer, then you can start your shading. Always think about where the light's coming from. Since the sheen is on this side, the light is coming from this direction, heading down towards the sheen. So when I shade, I want to shade on the opposite side. I tend to shade on the lighter side. You can always shade more. Really, it's kind of hard to shade too much. In worst case scenario, you can make your picture a night setting to make up for your heavy shading. Then you just go over it again with the same color to shade. The shading will be very light but noticeable. Still noticeable. Think about where shadows might get created. Now I've gotten my basic part done. The final part, the part that I enjoy the most just because it's fun, is the pastels. The pastels I use are Richardson soft pastels. They're very expensive, but they're absolutely wonderful to use. It's kind of like finger painting. You can't be afraid of getting messy in this situation. So I'm just going to do some blue corners with this blue here, just to make it fun. And so now, when you do it, you want to kind of press down hard to where you're getting some of it flaking off. And you don't have to do it too much, only where you want it darkest. And then you just kind of take your finger in a round motion, just kind of mix it around. If you press too hard, then your lines from your original press will be very noticeable. I like this method because it's unique and it gets backgrounds done very quickly. Try and make your other ends as symmetrical as possible. Start where it's darkest and work your way out to the lightest part. If it ends up a little bit uneven, you can add color. No matter what, if you keep working it, it will spread. You just have to be patient with it. As you're trying to use each art media, don't be afraid to experiment first. Take some practice paper and just work with it a bit. Try and get to know your art media. That way, when it comes time to draw, you know exactly how to work it. And don't worry if in the end it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want. And even if it doesn't look that amazing to you, usually it'll look 2 or 3 steps better to someone else. So that's about all I'm going to do with it today, but I will show you something else. When you're finished with your artwork, if you want it to preserve, especially with the soft pastels, it'll come off very easily onto your finger. And so I use what's Krylon Workable Fixative. Now this stuff is like a spray can. You definitely want to do this outside or make sure it's well ventilated. And what you do is you just take it and you spray it up and down and side to side and let it dry for a couple of hours. That'll protect your artwork and make it harder to spread. Finally, when you're finished, you take your black marker. Make sure you always sign your work. The corner is great, or some sort of nook on the picture can also work. It's also a good idea to date your artwork. A lot of those pictures that I showed in the slideshow did not have dates, and I was disappointed that I didn't know exactly when I made them. I think that'll be about it for today, guys. Have fun experimenting with the artwork. You can start with some Crayola pencils or even some crayons and just work up from there. Please like the video if you like it and subscribe. I'll see you all later.